Hello class, welcome back. This is chapter 13, and in this chapter we're examining motivation. Now motivation is very important for leaders because leaders have to motivate their followers to do things. So let's look at motivation. Motivation is a skill, and I broke it down that there are three things that we want to look at. First thing is, when do you have to motivate people? Now you have to motivate people in good times and in bad times. And you may be thinking it's easier to motivate people when times are bad, but it's really not the case. It can be very, very difficult to motivate them when times are good. Why? Because people become complacent. They're content. Why do we want to change anything? Everything's good. Let's just leave it the way it is. In bad times, there's conflict that needs to be resolved. People need to get involved in order to be able to make things better. So that's when we have to motivate. How about direction? Direction is, for the purposes of our discussion, how to set goals. Now, not all goals are good goals. And what do I mean by that? Take the company Sharp Hughes Tools. Sharp Hughes Tool is the first company set up by Howard Hughes, who was a multi-billionaire back in the early 20th century. Howard Hughes always set goals for his company. They had to do better. They had to go into new industries. They had to be better in those industries. So he started out with a tool company that made oil drilling bits, went into movies, wanted to make the best movies. Then from there he went into airlines, wanted to have the best airlines. Then he went into other forms of transportation. Everything he did, he always set a goal. We're going to do it as best as we can do within the framework of the abilities that we have for that industry. Now, compare that to a bad goal. We're seeing it right now in Wells Fargo. We did a little discussion board work on this. Wells Fargo right now set a whole bunch of goals for its employees to open up accounts, get things moving inside the company. People, the expression is they game the system. They realize they're going to look at how many different accounts we can open up. We'll just start opening accounts up and we'll be achieving all of our goals and we'll look good. So you can have good goals and you can have bad goals. And you really have to examine what you're trying to achieve with the goal and how you're achieving it to determine whether or not it's really doing its job correctly. How do we motivate people? Another thing that's very, very important. If we know when we got to do it, and we know that we're going to set realistic, good goals, then how do we achieve this idea of motivation? Well, the first thing is you have to very carefully design the work that people do. You can't just set them adrift and say, here, go do this. You have to design the work. In other words, you've got to talk to HR. Remember, go back to that discussion and make sure that their work is something that they can do. You have to enlarge their jobs and empower your staff. What's that mean? Remember that concept of right-sizing? Sometimes we're going to expand the company and people are going to get more jobs and more people. Sometimes we're going to downsize. People are going to get greater responsibility. So enlarging the jobs and empowering your staff is very important. The empowerment part is, you know, you're doing well, I want you to do more, and here's new things for you to think about. Next, you have to recognize that not all people are going to view their job the same way you do. I'll give you an example. When I ran my company, I was there, 15 hours a day. Wanted to get everything done, it's got to be right the first time, etc. Not all my employees felt that way. Some of them just wanted to work 9 to 5, and it was very hard to motivate them. Okay? But that's something that we move up against, and we have to work to make sure that they understand that, what they're doing is important. And that feeds back to these ideas of enlarging their jobs, giving them variety, and empowering them as they do it. Next thing is you have to treat everybody equally and fairly. Okay? What's that mean? That means that everybody who comes in gets the same treatment. You don't single people out to admonish, and you don't single out people, sometimes you do, to say, hey, you're doing a really great job, you are the star of the day, you're better than all the rest. It's good to say that people are doing well, and it's good to say that they're doing better than you expect them. But try not to say, well, you're doing better than John over there, or you're doing better than Jill. And Jill, why don't you try to be like this person? That doesn't build anybody up. And finally, understand what your obligations are as a leader or manager. Now, you may say to yourself, why did he put this one at the end? Okay? That's because if you do all this, okay, you still have to understand and be centered. You still have to understand where I'm coming from as an individual. It's you, where you're coming from, and what you're trying to achieve. Now, if you don't understand that, you're not centered that way, all this other work is not going to be of any value because people won't understand, they won't be motivated by what you're doing, and they won't want to follow you. So the idea is you develop all these skills, and then you look back at yourself, and you say, okay, self, Am I a good example of what I'm trying to achieve here? A lesson that I learned was there are people that they say what they do, but they don't do what they say. Okay? You want to be both, because that way you'll understand who you are, and your employees will understand who you are. I'll see you next in chapter number 14.